You've reached the Union and Metro Street podcast, where we discuss the San Diego music scene of the late 80s and all of the 90s, from the shows we worked to the shows we played. Here we go.
All right, peeps. Today we have, I was almost going to rip off another podcast saying special, but because he says special 3 times. But as I'm dragging this on, we have Tim Pyles, local legend.
Thank you.
And dude, I'm stoked to be doing this. And the one thing about it is I like to do a deep dive and find out all the history. So we'll do kind of a deep dive, and then we'll get into what's going on now, because I know you're doing a lot of booking and other stuff. So.
Sure.
And he's got his podcast going too.
Yeah.
So we got
presents Soundcheck Flicks.
So finally on the Union and Metro podcast, Mr. Tim Pyles.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you.
This is amazing. This house is amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I've driven past this place thousands upon thousands of times, and I had no idea.
And now
this is a magical place.
You can point up and go, oh, yeah.
I will. Maybe I'll stop by and check out the bowl out front.
Yeah, absolutely.
And hurt myself.
Do you still skate or have you?
I keep it to the ground. Longboard or something like that is more my speed. I was never doing kick flips or doing half pipes or anything myself, but grew up and went to Oasis Skate Park and moving on, which was out like in kind of the Lemon Grove area. And I had some visits to the Del Mar Skate Ranch as well.
Cool.
I always liked the snake runs.
Yeah.
That was more my thing. I wasn't trying to get too gnarly.
Yeah.
I do have a nice scar on my chin from this moving on skate park where I did a nice like chin plant back probably in the 70s.
Yeah.
But I still have boards thanks to Sector 9.
Well, luckily it was in the 70s and not recent.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'd be breaking all kinds of bones.
Time to heal.
That's exactly where I'm at. I mean, I'll ride a little bit in the bowl, but I'm not trying to get gnarly.
I still want to go to the pump track. I think I could handle the pump track.
Yeah, I've checked that out a few times. I've been invited, and each time I look at it, it's like, I don't know. I get tired just looking at it, you know? And then plus you see the little kids, like there's 8-year-old kids, 10-year-old kids that are just ripping around that thing. And I was never very good at front side anything. So I'm always, doing backside, whatever tricks, unless I'm doing like a sweeper or a boneless.
Uh-huh.
But then again, that goes back into the 80s when I was pretty prolific.
Right. And
now it's the whole thing, because we were just talking about earlier, our age, me turning 55 on Halloween, the idea of falling and getting hurt, and then I can't push my mower, I can't make any money. It's just, I have to weigh.
Yeah.
So therefore my skating is limited. I like
What's
to do
the priority?
Yeah.
Feeding your family, having a roof over your head, or
well, not only that, the crazy medical bills,
Yeah, or
go to the ER. It's going to cost you $10,000.
Oh,
yeah, no, thank you. No, I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm now a pass holder at SeaWorld again, which I probably haven't had a pass since I was like 8 years old. But they got roller coasters now, so I'm flinging my body on those crazy roller coasters. That's more my thing.
And that to me is insane. I'm so afraid of heights.
Those two there are true thrill rides.
Yeah. You
They're
can
pretty
see
gnarly.
them from here. I mean, we can see the fireworks whenever they're doing that from here.
It's amazing.
And of course, Pugsley loses his mind because, again, it's another thing up in the sky that might come down and hurt us.
The banner being towed by a plane outside. Your dog was just going nuts for it. I'm like, what the hell is he going nuts? And he saw a plane towing a banner, and that was it. That was amazing. Pugsley's amazing.
He's got good eyesight.
I guess so, like eagle eye.
Yep.
Yeah. He's funny. It's when crows go flying over, he'll go outside, and it's when a whole group of them, a murder of crows is going over, he just will lose his mind. He's out there barking at him. He'll run around to the back and front, just trying to get a hold of him.
I love pugs.
He's literally insane. He's the best dog ever. But speaking of, let's do a deep dive. When did you start getting into music, and like when did it start to become?
Back then, this is before MTV. I mean, I've always loved music. My first concert was Kiss and Cheap Trick. That's junior high school, but then that changed very quickly. Whereas I got really into, I mean, I loved a lot of the 80s stuff, maybe trying to discover my path. Growing up in La Jolla, I definitely wasn't a punk. I don't think La Jolla was the appropriate place to really rebel. I felt a mod was more my scene.
Oh, yeah.
I was really into the ska and the two-tone, and loved seeing all those bands of that era, just the British two-tone ska bands.
Yeah.
So that was my thing. I got into a scooter club. This coming weekend, we're celebrating 40 years as a scooter club, secret society scooter club. It still exists.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't been a part of it for years, but my friends, that's still a part of it. They're still my brothers, my fraternity all these years later. But we're going to celebrate 40 years next weekend, which would be September 2nd.
That's right.
And that's kind of exciting.
Do you go to the shop down the street over here?
What shop?
There's like a Vespa shop.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
those are my friends.
Couple blocks
Alex
down.
Cohn. Yeah, the one right on Pacific Coast Highway.
Yeah, because the last podcast we did was with Jay Navarro from the Suicide Machines, and he actually orders his stuff from there.
Yeah.
To be sent to Detroit. So when we were here after we did the cast, he's like, "Hey, let's go over there. I got to get some parts for my Vespa." And
Alex has been part of that culture and scene for many, many years. And then he got the Vespa dealership part of it because they opened up a weird little store in Hillcrest. It was like a little boutique Vespa store. But these things all come and go.
Yeah.
He gets the dealership, and then he's built that empire down there on Pacific Coast Highway where kids are, buying new scooters. San Diego's becoming more conducive, I think, for that kind of transportation, as we get more compact.
While we were there, it was like 6 kids popped up on their Vespas.
Yeah,
it's
the whole thing.
My wife wants to get one. We looked into it for a while, and then we ended up getting her another car. But that's something that's on the horizon of, we want to get. And unfortunately, I could never ride a motorcycle as a kid, but this is my introduction, is I had a Spree back in the mid 80s. I used to ride that thing around like a BMX bike, jumping it and curb cuts. But I've always respected the Vespas. I mean, they're a sweet machine.
It was fun back in the day.
Yeah.
Just the scene culture. There were, a lot more scooters. You would go see Quadrophenia up at the Ken Cinema, and there'd be, a couple hundred of these scooters out there. So I had one for a while, and then I had a couple accidents. So I decided it was time to get rid of it. But I do currently have one. I barely ever Drive it. It's called a Bajaj. They make them in India. They look just like the Vespas, same framework and everything. And then over the years, because I've had access to all these two-tone artists, the cowl, which is one of the side pieces on a scooter, you can very easily take off, and I could take it with me to a show. So I have had like all the Specials, Madness, Selector, various bands sign that. And one time years ago, Paul Weller, who's kind of the mod father of that mod scene and culture, he played at 4th and B, and we'd done a rally there. So my Bajaj, which is not one of the more desirable scooters, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
It's not a Vespa. It's not a Lambretta. It's a Bajaj.
But it's not a Spree.
Is it? Definitely not a Spree. It is a metal frame scooter. But yeah, Paul Weller signed it. So I've protected that signature. And that alone probably puts some value on it to some mod collector, because I have all these signatures on it. But that's awesome. My youth, and that's a big part of my original days of just getting into music and going to shows and being part of a scene. And then, as time progressed, different things would go on. There were different clubs. There was a place called Winters up by SDSU that Tim Hall used to book. We were talking about him earlier, and it was cool because they'd have like goth music upstairs, and then bands would play downstairs. So it kind of provided my wife now, but girlfriend back then, kind of both the things we wanted in a night, sort of.
Yeah.
But then, that rave scene came around, and man, plus I was working a normal job. I'd worked in construction. I worked at a law firm, but wasn't going out during the week that much unless it was like really a band I really had to see. But man, from like 91 to 96, that's pretty much what the scene I was experiencing was the underground rave scene, which was fresh. It was brand new. Nobody even, things weren't called a rave.
Right.
It started to be called that.
Yeah.
And the Soma had some shows back then in that time period.
Yeah. And then you remember Play School over at the sports arena.
Yes.
And all that.
So because of Todd Zweig, who was the big Play School promoter, he was the night, this big clubs, but still, even it wasn't a rave yet. And then all of a sudden we went to this one. We'd gotten a flyer from him. And we went to this one. You had to go to a map point up in Escondido to buy your ticket to tell you where to go. We're driving. It was up by Lake Elsinore. And it was this mega rave. Never been to anything like it in my life.
They originally started outdoors. They weren't indoors.
Yes,
right?
This was a big outdoor. And then here in San Diego, I mean, it was very punk rock because as it grew, you know, you'd have promoters and guys with sound systems, and they were just driving around on the day of what was supposed to be their party and finding an empty warehouse up in Mira Mesa, Sereno Valley, maybe down in Otay. And so they'd break in, you know, run a generator, throw a party, no harm, no foul. And we got away with a lot of stuff back then, basically.
Isn't that the way that they were doing in Europe?
Yeah.
Didn't it originate?
Yeah.
Because
the map points and the having multiple places to go was just a way to, you know, get around the police or get around anybody figuring out where the party was.
It's just the same as the sewer shows and house parties. It's just taken to a different level because the amount of people that would go to those, especially in the beginning, was insane.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it's got that DIY punk rock ethic to it.
But there was a full moon party, which was down by Old Town, by the 5 and the 805, the 5 and 8 where they cross. And that night we felt like a weird energy there. Like there was something weird. And it turns out that night we left early and there was a shooting. And so that was kind of the end of the summer of love in that peace, love, unity, respect world. For me, anyway.
What year was that?
96.
96.
And by 1997, I had lost a job and I became an intern at 91X at, I think, 29, 30, and started working events. I found a job posting at SDSU, which I became Tim the Runner in the building. I was Tim the Runner. So that meant this is when deregulation happened in radio, and all of a sudden this big radio company could own a bunch of radio stations.
Right.
That probably was the end of a good time in radio in a way, but it also got me hired. So they had multiple buildings, and I was the guy that I spent 8 hours a day driving around, going to all the buildings, talking to everybody from the GM to the interns, and passing out inter-office stuff. Logs, picking up commercials. So it was a great introduction. I got to know everybody. Yeah. And then Loudspeaker was on at midnight back then on Monday nights. Mm-hmm. Big disrespect to local music at that time. Midnight on. But that was also my opportunity to come in and just start showing up every Monday night. And eventually I kind of weaseled my way into the show, then had a lead role in the show. And then they... Chris Muckley, who was the music director, and Hillary, who was doing the new music show, they kind of gave me the new music show. So I was then doing weekends and getting to do kind of the cool shows, in my eyes, where you got to play stuff you wanted. So I felt like my taste was pretty good. So the new music show was super awesome. But then the local show, I knew what was more important about the local show in my eyes was to reflect the entire music scene, even if it wasn't maybe my cup of tea or my world, but I didn't want it to just be down one angle, one alley. Like I wanted to cover,
or even something 91X would even play.
Yeah.
So you pull stuff that they wouldn't normally be on the radio.
Exactly. Singer, anything. I mean, whatever you could imagine. I mean, from electronic music to hip hop.
That's when I got to know you, was back then.
Yeah.
When you started the Loudspeaker.
And at that point, that was a weird time. A lot of punk bands. Obviously because the Blink-182 phenomena was just blowing up right then. So there were just too many pop punk bands for a while there.
Yeah, it was fairly saturated, to say the least.
But radio, I got to do that for pretty much 25 years. I mean, it's technically I still am, but it's just a little radio station up in Laguna Beach. So I'm still producing these shows that are a new music show and what I call a local show, even though I'm not playing a lot of bands from Orange County, but the station's in Laguna Beach, so I figured I'd maybe try to play some Orange County bands occasionally, but mostly they're bands from San Diego and TJ. But I still have that access, which gives me access to the things I love, which is still to go see bands.
Yeah.
Get on those guest lists, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm still supporting music and, booking bands at the Casbah, and every day it's about music for me.
Yeah.
Checking out some new bands.
So is this the full-time job that you're doing now?
No, I mean, even the radio gig for all those years, whether it was 91X or 94.9 was kind of a part-time thing. So I was, I had to augment that. So augment that with working for Tim Mays at the Casbah and helping him. Or, the highlight for me was right there before COVID, those few years before COVID, where ultimately I was getting to do the stuff I was doing at 91X, but also working on the TV show San Diego. And, I don't know if my bosses loved that I was doing that, the 91X bosses that,
right.
It's kind of weird, but I was interviewing all these artists that were 91X artists, and getting to interview people that I love and admire, from Bobby Gillespie from Primal Scream to Marky Smith from The Fall to the guys in Slayer to Anthrax. It was just insane what I got to do with that program, San Diego.
Yeah.
The thing I hate about it is they, I guess NBC is kind of proprietary on their stuff. So there's very little footage of any of that stuff I did for the TV show for 7-8 years. Like, it's not on YouTube or not.
Yeah,
that's kind of a bummer, because I did get to interview.
So it's all
a lot
their
of fun
property.
people.
Well, yeah, I remember too. You were at Lollapalooza. I think the last Lollapalooza. You were hanging out with Jane's Addiction. Remember that? That was years ago.
Maybe Lollapalooza. Where? Here?
Yeah, it was San Diego. It was like
Okay.
2004, 2003,
Yeah.
something like that.
So you guys, I have to rely on so many people to provide me with some amazing memories whenever I even get down and somebody tells me something that was significant in their life that I was involved with. And I get that all the time, which is kind of nice, because I have had a lot of great experiences and been able to share that with a lot of people over the years, bands, and just trying to help, over the years, ultimately getting a band played on the radio and getting them a gig at the Casbah was like the 1-2 punch. It was like perfect,
I mean, you must have played then, because I've only been heard my many bands. I've only heard Sin Sin, and I think I did the old tape record, and it was on loudspeaker, and it was probably radio. I can't remember, but when I remember calling in, and I think it must have been you.
Okay.
And you played the song, and I didn't really say who I was. I was just kind of, like a little kid, like, yeah, I'm finally on the radio, and I got such a kick out of it. And with Sin Sin, that's the only band that ever played Casbah. Out of all the bands that I've ever done and everything that I've done, I've only played there, just the once with Sin Sin 77.
What are the other bands?
Cockroach, Pour, Meat, Urine. Okay, now I got to do a deep dive.
Bands that wouldn't be played on the radio.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Doesn't mean you couldn't play the Casbah.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't know, because, I've known Tim since I started at Soma in 89.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I wouldn't really think of them as being Casbah bands anyways.
Right.
I was always kind of on the very edge of this could go bad really quickly. And, it was definitely, there was a
better for the sewer.
Yeah. The sewer. And I rarely played Soma.
Right.
Just because I felt that it was more about the local bands, and I didn't want to put myself, even though I could.
Right.
And I only played the main stage when Pour opened up for Fear. Other than that, I never booked myself on the main stage. It was always about the local stuff.
Yeah.
Basically the same thing as loudspeaker, giving other people an opportunity, because I had infiltrated. I was booking shows, and Lamb was running he owned the place and ran the place, but I was in there, doing my thing,
sure,
getting as many local bands. And, back in the early 90s, there was hundreds of bands. Everyone had a band, and everyone had an opportunity because they could play Soma, and then they could, a lot of them have gone off to do great things. But then to be able to step it up and also be able to play gigs, to play Soma, then you get on loudspeaker, then you're getting bigger and bigger. These were all stepping stones.
True.
And I don't know, realistically, I'm so focused in on just San Diego, and I'm still learning more. I've forgotten more than I could even imagine. We had a flyer the other day for an Offspring show with Ill Repute on a Sunday, and it was doors at 9 on the flyer. And I'm looking at the flyer. There's no way. I had to look at my old books, and I guess we did.
Huh.
Jerry and I both were trying to figure that out. because completely forgotten about it.
Well, you thought it was in '89, and the date didn't match.
Yeah.
So somebody on the page pointed it out that it was in '91 that show was done.
When did the first Soma open? What year?
It was
'87, right?
I believe so.
But it was it was a
87?
dance club.
Yeah, and
It wasn't originally for bands to play.
And then I think it was either late '88 or early '89, because I started in late '89. He had done Ministry,
Danzig.
I was thinking there was something else, but yeah. So it was the dance club upstairs, and Todd had done Play School
Right.
up there as well. There was John. I believe he was doing Mania, but it was the goth club up on top, and then there was a dungeon where they could do bands, and then that's where I kind of slid in because Len was looking for an artist, and talked to Ray from Short Lived, and I was working with Short Lived and Unwritten Law and some Struggle, and Missing Children. So I was able to slide in under the pretense of being an artist, but I'm like, what got me in was I said, I know the 9th, and I could probably get the 9th here. So that got Len's attention. So I was able to get my foot in, and then, just started, it just built from there. And eventually I did have the 9th play, but.
I remember, I think I saw Mudhoney down there,
Mm-hmm.
Front 242.
Mm-hmm.
But the one that stands out, I'll never forget, is this crazy British band called Daisy Chainsaw.
Yes.
I love Daisy Chainsaw. Such a great band. Go look up that video, Daisy Chainsaw.
Oh, no,
single, I think.
That's Jerem's favorite band.
My favorite.
Pugsley's too, I think.
Yeah.
Right, Pugsley? Yeah.
We're talking about Daisy. I know. Yeah, I still have the giant poster.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that to this day is my favorite show of anything that I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
When Katie James poured that, the tea kettle of the fake blood on it, and
Yeah.
oh my God.
Well, that just reminded me of that. Wow. I wish there was video footage. That was a good one, though.
Mike Nevison was driving the band around in my station wagon. Katie had left a scarf, so I had her scarf.
Uh-huh.
And yeah,
Did they ever come back after that again that you
No.
remember? Right.
No.
Yeah, good band.
But yeah,
Short-lived.
you're the only person that has called that out. That
Wow,
was-
nice. Significant.
Other
I'll
than
never
me.
forget it, At least
So I'm gonna have to.
I didn't
tag
remember
him.
the blood, but I remember just the show, being there. And how much I love that being my favorite Soma, with the balcony, upstairs room, and then the basement room downstairs, and just how, well, number one, it was actually south of Market where a Soma should be. So that's how it gets the name. I'm sure people know that by now, but that was a good one. But you said it opened when? What year did it start doing shows there?
I believe it opened in '87. We would have to look back at Sammy, the sound guy.
It's just, the thing that blows my mind is now you can have beer and wine at Soma, but I'm just trying to imagine, always had to have some drinks before going to shows, because I turned 21. I was 21 at this point. So I think I remember there were some train cars down the street from the one down on Market Street. So I do remember like sitting on some train cars, probably doing some pre-gaming or something for a Soma show.
See, I was in the Navy during that time frame with the first Soma. Yeah, we'd definitely pound a couple 40s before we
Something.
At both venues.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because I mean, the ones, I'd have to look at a list. Do you guys have a list of like the shows at the?
We've been trying to get one from the reader. It'd be great to like pull up all the shows so we'd know exactly the
everything
dates.
at the Soma.
Yeah.
Well, the Cult stands out at the one there in Linda Vista.
Yep.
The Cult, Love and Rockets.
Oh yeah,
Saw them.
I did
there.
that. That was with Orgy opening.
Okay, and then wait, there was one more.
That was Morena.
Yeah. That was all right. I always liked the graffiti wall there. I thought that was the standout point
The
of
graffiti hallway.
Yeah, the hallway there. I'm trying to think. They did some raves there. That's when Len would allow
Yeah, we
like
did.
those kinds of things happen there.
We did Love. We did Lilliput, and
Lilliput. I remember that. I think I have flyers for all this stuff from back then.
I think we did about 4 raves.
He wasn't a fan necessarily.
Well, we really weren't fans of that because those were rough. I mean, that was an all-nighter thing.
Yeah, they'd go till 4 a.m.
Yep.
And you might have to call an ambulance or two.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure Lynn was a
6
fan
in the
of it
morning.
because he probably made a lot of money off those.
Sure,
shows.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we sold pallets of water.
Yeah, exactly.
Insane. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be for me, it would be a minimum of like 20-hour shift because I would have to open the club.
Right.
They would start loading in.
A lot of decorating.
Oh, yeah. And
They want to transform it.
and then far as crowd, you didn't know what you're going to get, and we had some fights during those raves.
Oh, yeah.
See, at that point, that's why it was their douchebags started to be in that scene and
the
culture.
Club kids,
Yeah.
show up and I think started stuff.
Yeah.
Well, there was fun club kids back in the 80s and the 90s. Some of those went on to like the real flamboyant club kids. But yeah, it's just a weird element. I think people started to realize all the money that could be made on the extracurricular part of it.
There was a lot of drugs going on.
The drugs?
Confiscated
What
tons
drugs?
of drugs.
There's
I
more
can only
drugs there
imagine.
than a pharmacy.
A lot of ecstasy and what was it? He would do
the GHB nitrous.
and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First time I went to a rave, which was this one we drove way up to Lake Elsinore for. I could care less about the Grateful Dead or ever going to a Grateful Dead show in my life. I have to call it on a few artists. That's one. But they were selling balloons near where we were standing, and I couldn't figure out like why balloons were $5 and they didn't have any helium in it or anything. I had no idea about the nitrous. Became a fan though for a little while.
Yeah, those things. When they were doing it at Soma, that's the element where other people started to realize that's just kind of a good, safe place to go. You can get drugs, you can be high as fuck, you can fuck with the people because there was a divide. You got the club kids, some of them, I mean, just absolutely crazy dressed up, and that shit's fun, because I think of like if Jane County was there,
right?
She would have fit in and been like, "These are my fucking people." But then there's the other people that just went there specifically because they could get fucked up and they could fuck with other people.
Yeah.
And when you kind of bring those two scenes in together, and that's what killed it for me.
Yeah.
Well, then we were in an all ages venue, and then after dark with those raves, was 21 and up. I think it was 21 and up, or maybe 18 and up. I can't remember.
I think it was an 18.
But I remember there was nudity too. I remember a lot of naked chicks walking around.
Sure. I just shared a picture back in the day. There was these party barges that were out in the South Bay. So where Les Girls is? For years, there was a billboard up above it that said, had a floating castle.
Oh,
you remember the floating castle?
Yeah, I do.
So there was somebody got it. We did this rave, and not the floating castle, but it's this party barge. So it's not in the water anymore, but we had to take like little shuttle boats out to San Diego Bay. And it was really kind of I don't know what kind of parties they were throwing on there other than this one rave, but it was not quite like the idea of it being a mile offshore because it's in the bay. But there was some shady ass stuff probably going on in there every weekend. But it's not in the water anymore. But it's funny. I posted a photo of it like up on dry dock.
Yeah, that is
vivid memories of that one. That was a good one. That was a fun time. I enjoyed that time because it was punk and underground in its own way. But as I said, it like anything stuff gets ruined, gets played out. The wrong element comes in, and at that point, then I was ready to revisit all my love of everything. I mean, gosh, the access through the radio station stuff. I took full advantage of seeing all kinds of artists, stuff maybe I wouldn't even normally consider going to. I will say I've been blown away by many, many shows I never expected. Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band does stand out as like one of those shows where, those are the songs you heard growing up a little bit, like AM radio before you had any taste in music. It's just you listen to what was on like that. Maybe the station
AM,
mom put on or something.
AM, no, I do AM 6. But back in the day, remember 13K?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then, 91X was around
83.
And then,
but in the 70s, like I loved B100. That was
there we go. That's
one.
The one, yeah.
And I actually grew up with a kid that his dad was the general manager of that station. We were actually the B100 Bears, bitches. That was a soccer team, not the bitches part. We were just the B100 Bears. That was fun. Yeah,
that's funny. So you played soccer.
I never was good enough to make it on the team in La Jolla. La Jolla is kind of known for having some good players, but I played a lot of that growing up, just organized soccer. And the funny thing is I went away to college for 1 year to a university, and I get there and I meet a guy on the soccer team, and it turns out that they need players. So I got to play a year of collegiate soccer. I can actually say I was okay. But nonetheless, I made the team.
That ups my game. I was from, 10 to about 13. I think I played 3 or 4 years on a team called Vila, Miramesa Vila.
Uh-huh.
And our coach was only 5 years older than us.
Uh-huh.
So we were kind of known, and 1 year we were undefeated, but we were kind of known as, I would say back then, basically the punk rockers.
Sure.
But he was, he would listen to like Boston, ELO, and I was more into like Sabbath and sort of stuff, starting to get into punk rock.
Yep.
But we were an aggressive freaking team.
I vaguely remember that. We might have played.
And then we would, we played all around San Diego. We kind of had a reputation. So that would be in the 70s because I'm 2 years younger than you.
Yeah. I vaguely remember that name.
And then
the Nomads were the big La Jolla team.
I remember the Nomads.
The next level.
That just gave me chills. Let's take it on the field. And then later, in I believe it's about 88. This is funny because coming full circle into the mod scene and ska, we I think it was through the 9th that I had met some other people. And it was through the 9th. So there was Kevin and Era from Contra Guerra, that band with Jackie.
Yep.
And we were trying to start a team of like ska mods and punk rockers playing soccer. We met a few times, and I played a little bit.
Sure.
Really rusty, but I
did
playing
some indoor up there in North Park there.
Oh, okay.
For a little bit, yeah.
We played. I don't remember. I think it was the field out in out east. I can't remember the area. I'm actually not San Marcos, but San Carlos maybe. And I remember I was playing in chinos, which was just as dumb as, you could claim it as being punk rock. It was not smart, but it was fun. These punks and ska people. And this was pre-Soma.
Okay.
So it was kind of my way of starting to get to know other people in the scene. And I would go out with Short Lived, and we would go to shows, and the Mortuary. That place across from the living room out on El Cajon Boulevard?
Yeah, it used to be Winters.
Okay, that was Winters. Yeah. That place, I really enjoyed that place. Short-lived to play there once.
That was a cool spot because it had fake snow, fake icicles, looked like an alpine lodge.
Yeah.
It was all dark wood. It was a steakhouse.
Yeah.
But they, on the weekends, were throwing somebody got in there, Tim Hall, because Eddie Vedder, used to work there. His band Bad Radio played at that spot. I can't remember if Pearl Jam did an early show there or not, but that was cool. It had the upstairs, a little industrial kind of music going on, and the bands could be anything. They were never really a goth band per se. It was
I see.
Could be anything.
B.A. Pickles was a great show.
Yeah,
there was I forget who they were playing, but it was a full like psychobilly show.
Sure.
That was a lot of fun. And now, again, Eddie Vedder pops up because he used to go to the cave all the time. And I had completely forgotten all about, I've known him. I used to, not let him into the club. Not into the house. Do you remember the cave? The Ninth's house out in Spring Valley?
Yeah.
Well, so they had basically the hallway going to the bedrooms. There was a face. It was done up like a cave. Had all this, the black curtain type thing so you can go through. In their living room, well, first they had 3 rows of Palisade seats. They had built booths, and then they had a stage, and the sign said the Dick Floyd Show. So the Ninth would play there with, they had Doggy Style, 7 Seconds. A few bands had played there. And whenever, a couple of times that Ara was doing the shows, he was from the Ninth, he would put me on door duty. So it's kind of like a precursor to Soma for me. And I don't remember this, but my Sam, the drummer from Short Lived, was reminding me. Yeah, he used to tell Eddie that he couldn't come in. He would try to bump cigarettes off of you and beers, and I'm like, I don't even remember him. And then later, of course, Eddie's doing quite well. And
Sure.
We talked about it. I sent him a DM because it's the only contact, but I want to interview him for the podcast. I think that'd be great because
he's got to have some good San Diego stories.
Oh yeah, and he's another one that's been in San Diego from the beginning in the early days.
Sure.
Speaking of, are you native to San Diego or?
I grew up in La Jolla since I was age 4. My parents were from Minnesota, so I was actually a bastard. I was hidden for 4 months while my mother had me, and I was in a foster home while they waited to get married because of her family's conservative nature. So she didn't want to announce that she was pregnant out of wedlock, and so they got married, and then I appeared. Actually, their wedding anniversary was yesterday.
Wow!
So 57 years they've been married.
Wow! Congratulations!
But I appear at 4 months of age, and they moved to Orange County, West Covina, Garden Grove. But they bought a house in La Jolla in 1970 for nothing, and still live there.
Oh, that's great!
So
they're
in
their
basically,
80s.
you're a native.
Yeah, I would say so. I've got major San Diego pride. I still think this town deserves so much more than it's ever offered to any of us, any scene, and art, music, culture. We're indebted to people like Alen and a Tim Mays and a handful of these people that have come and gone, but it's still not enough. We need more. We need more people to support all this stuff because this town is still filled with people that want to play pickleball or whatever, paddleboard, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
it's always been a conservative town.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've always been saying, I think the best thing to come across this town was the fact we're kind of the beer capital for America.
Definitely now, that's for sure.
Yeah. That's a nice thing. I mean, to think of people coming here for that they're not coming here for any other reason but the beer.
Let's open a brewery. Cool. So many breweries here.
Yeah.
Now it's crazy. Fall Brewing just opened one. Have you ever been to the Fall? I know you don't. You said you don't drink anymore, but the Fall Brewing establishments, of which they opened a new one, are history lessons of concerts and whatnot. They have just David Lively, who's done a lot of art in the past, but great posters. Like the whole space is just emblazoned with various show posters and big pieces of artwork.
Actually, Jerem's in a beer club.
Yeah, which just makes it kind of difficult.
With J. Michael Nyota?
Yeah.
I think I made your stickers. Or I think I'm going to make some stickers for you. Pyles Sticker Company, yeah. If I got a sticker side hustle going on, thanks to a friend of mine. So if you guys need stickers, stickerpyles@gmail.com, Pyles, or Pyles Sticker Co. on Instagram.
Yeah.
Thanks to my friend Junior.
We're going to have to definitely put the links in the description. I think I knew that for some reason, which is funny because now that I don't need any stickers for anything, I would have rather gone through you. I don't really have anything. I mean, eventually...
What, the podcast doesn't need stickers?
That's true. We do need some more.
Do, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It just hasn't been on the radar. Actually, there's some of the old ones right there.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I like to keep things local.
Exactly.
So
local pride.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming back to that, when I was in the heyday of, really doing well with the scene, there was literally hundreds of bands. And then I used to always say we're like the bastard child of LA, because the LA bands, when they come down to Orange County, they just they got that, they're like roosters walking around. They got all that pride. And there's the joke I talk about where I gave, what's his face? The singer Jonathan from Korn.
Mm-hmm.
He had asked once when they were playing Metro, he said, Jerem, how come every time we come down here, it's raining? I said, because you guys are from L.A., and L.A. sucks.
But they're actually from Bakersfield.
I know, that's the worst thing about it. But he just looked at me like, God, you're such a dick. But it was true. Every time they played, I mean, it seemed like it was, raining. And it rarely rains.
Rarely.
Yeah. But how much notoriety we got, and then when we were called the next Seattle.
Sure.
The next Seattle. No, we're still the same frickin' San Diego. And there's so much talent. I mean, we just go through the list. I mean, from Loudspeaker. You could just throw a dart at a map of San Diego and go, okay, there's 2 bands from that little part, that section of Poway.
Sure. Yeah.
Or, it's just, there's bands everywhere. And then, 1 band's breaking up and then 2 or 3 other bands start up. So much talent. And then we get into everything else. I mean, all the entrepreneurs, all the small businesses. Now with the breweries, we got the weather. We got, all the music. And then, which I want to get into is how you got into booking at the Casbah. But also, as we were talking earlier, there's so many promoters. And like I was working with the kids in the Magnol company. They're off doing their thing now. There's a ton of kids in their 20s that are promoters. It's insane.
Sure.
Yet we're still...
They have no place to put the shows on, though. We need more for the kids.
And the city... Well, it's funny now that, we were talking about how Soma has the liquor license and all that. We were trying to get that in the beginning. And when we started off, you can probably remember, you had to be signed in if you were under 18. I was one of the ones that would go out with the clipboard, have to look at an ID and go, okay, so you're the so-called guardian.
That was the original downtown. So
okay.
that changed when Metro came into play in 94.
We actually
we didn't do sign-ins there.
Yeah, that only lasted like a year or so. And then for whatever reason, we were able to get the all-age license. But it was like pulling teeth.
Mm-hmm. San Diego sucks for allowing things to happen. I mean, over the years, they've made it extremely difficult for anybody to do something kind of cool. It's just conservative. They get concerned. I had some rave promoter friends were trying to put on Public Enemy back in the 90s, and they ended up, they were going to do it at the Scottish Rite Center. I think they had like 2 locations because they kept getting bounced around by the city for whatever reason. Obviously, I guess they're scared of Public Enemy, but they ended up doing it at Baby Rock down in TJ. But those stories, I mean, to this day, I'm still pissed that the Beastie Boys and Fishbone didn't get to play San Diego because that tour, which was the License to Ill tour, which was very controversial, our pansy-ass town got too scared to allow that show to happen at UCSD.
I'm surprised they didn't do it at Iguanas, actually, that show.
Yeah,
I don't know if Iguanas, I guess, would have been there. Yeah, I wasn't a big Iguana. By the time, it's weird because Soma, being 21, it's kind of, you're an adult now, you feel kind of like, I don't want to go hang out at some place where I can't see
the
music
kiddie club.
and even though it ends up being a lot, seeing bands you want to see, but still, that always was kind of a bummer, to have to go to these shows and you couldn't even have a beer.
Yeah, that was actually the great divide, realistically, and that's probably why I didn't really feel comfortable hitting Tim up for, hey, let one of my bands play here. We can open up for, whoever that might fit, but there was I heard it coined before many times, the Kiddie Club, which was us, which was the large venue. And it wasn't, per se, a kiddie club. Yeah, it was all ages, but you just couldn't drink. So once you turn 21, I mean, that's just a rite of passage. You want to have if you're a drinker,
right?
You want to have your drink. So you could either go to the Casbah, because realistically, anything other than that was, mediocre.
Sure.
Because, Tim and what the whole empire that he created, that's the place. If you want to see the Melvins.
Yeah.
I mean, another one of my favorite bands, you're right there. Buzz is looking at you and you're like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm here. But then you go and see him at Soma. And if you're in the back, you might as well be at the sports arena.
Sure. Yeah,
which,
true.
That's where I saw my first show was Iron Maiden. First, concert.
Okay.
Back in the whatever 80s. It was the Power Slave tour. And then later I saw Metallica there.
Right.
But I didn't want to sit down.
Right.
It just, I would go milling around. Whoever I was there with, they would just sit there and watch the show. And I would just go and mill around. I always felt like I got to do something. I can't just sit here.
Right.
Which is funny that when we ended up doing Soma, I was just in the back, running the back. So I was essentially sitting there the whole time.
Right.
And still, again, not watching the show, but listening to the show. And I'll kind of peep in a little bit. And, but I was more about just making sure that operationally ran well. And I took a lot of pride in that, along with, bringing new bands in. But for you, what was your thing? You like to go and mingle, or you sit in a chair or stand and watch the show?
I'm out and about. I want to see the bands, and I mingle a little bit. It depends. If I'm a little depressed that it's an underattended show on a Monday night, I might hide out in the office just for a bit. But no, I'm pretty interactive with everybody. I'm trying to, got to connect with some of these younger bands. I'm trying to bring some of these younger bands in that are bridging that gap. There's still probably in the all ages scene, those are their fan base. But this band I love right now, they're the rebirth of Oasis. It's 5 kids from the South Bay, and they definitely have like that Britpop kind of thing going on. They're called Pleasure Pill. They just got a nice write-up in Spin Magazine, and so they're kind of a band on the whatever that upward rise can be. So I'm excited about that band. But I always I want to connect. It's weird. As we're older guys, and I'm talking to these 20-somethings. I don't feel that weird talking to them. I kind of feel like they're just a peer. I don't feel like I'm like their grandfather or whatever, or their dad. That's the weird part. As I've been able to do this for so long, and first it was they're my peers. Now my friends, they have kids, and it's weird. Now their kids are grown, even starting their own band.
Right.
And so you've got a second generation coming through that I'm helping, which is that's all cool. I mean, mainly to have the longevity. And the relationship with Tim Mays, I'm a guy, Tim was doing punk shows. I would say the majority of the things he was doing in the halls around the city were punk shows. The mod scene was different. We had our own shows. I wasn't necessarily going to the punk shows. I wasn't a violent guy. And I felt like the punk scene in San Diego was overtly violent in that time period. The San Diego skinheads and even the Nazis that were around at that time was the whole friggin' thing. But
the old Soma.
Yeah. Well, then there was Crowbar and Velvet, or one of them had like a little bit of a history going. But the mod scene was completely up my alley. I mean, we had to deal with the skinheads occasionally. That was all. They try to tax your boots or something like that.
Yeah. That was, I remember that. My very first pair of boots, the story behind those is that they were taxed at a show. And I got those in 87.
Okay.
I believe it's 87. It must have been, because for me, in the origin of where all this started was at Wiener Schnitzel out in Santee.
Okay.
That's where the short-lived guys and we all started to meet and started to branch off. And then I just, for some reason, it kind of fit into a management role. And so I was pseudo-managing and trying to find shows.
I got a question for you guys. Since I didn't grow up in San Diego, where did you guys buy your docks at?
So that was the best story. You've never heard of this place? So back in the day, before there were eventually stores, Catwalk and Nana's.
Yeah, I remember.
What was it, Nana?
Well, Nana's was in LA. That's where I bought my docks.
There was a different store
because I did go to Catwalk when it,
Berlin
but it was
Wall.
the Berlin Wall down in Chula Vista was the first place. Wilhelm and his sister Princess opened the first store on 3rd Avenue. So. Yeah,
just gave
kids
me
from
chills.
all over the county were going to that place.
Because I grew up in Oxnard, hardcore.
Yeah.
But anyways, we'd have to go to LA to get the punk rock clothing.
And then eventually there was Gamma Gamma, where
that was the one. Yeah, Gamma Gamma.
That's where Len had talked to Ray from Short Lived, and he said, "I need an artist for this club. It's a dance club, and I need an artist." And Ray's all, my buddy Germ, he works with us, and yeah. So that's how I got my foot in the door. But as far as me buying docks, it's kind of embarrassing. But I had Len's hand-me-downs. I couldn't afford. I mean, I remember.
So you got
saving.
You got your docks from Len.
Yep.
Kids today, they can go to the Fashion Valley Mall.
Oh yeah,
and there's a Doc Martin store there now.
Yep.
Damn it.
Yeah.
But for me, the Pink Panther, Tim Mays is the first, alternative bar for young people here in San Diego. The Pink Panther on Marina Boulevard. That was the place where I began my relationship with Tim Mays and having some kind of connection with him. But then getting into the radio game in 2007, 2008, one of the things I loved was there was a DJ, Tom Perry. He lives back here in San Diego again, but he was on nights at 91X, and he would do a whole bit where it was called Tom's Nightclub, and it was like he was broadcasting from the back bar, at the Casbah. So when I started getting involved with loudspeaker, one of the first things I wanted to do was, hey, Tim Mays, can we do loudspeaker shows at the club, and can I broadcast live from the venue? So we did stuff like that, and then I started helping Tim book shows, and a lot of Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, kind of help him fill out the calendar.
Right.
And then lately it's been, post-COVID, it's just been a little bit more, possibly a Friday or a Saturday, which is, Monday, I don't feel any pressure. I'm going to bring in some new band that it's going to go one way or the other.
Right.
Either they realize the power of playing the Casbah and they're going to do everything in their power to get their friends to come out on a Monday.
Right.
Or it's friggin' Monday. Like, who goes out on a Monday to see a local band? So
yeah,
it all depends, Last week, I did 2 shows. I was really happy with both of the nights I booked. One was kind of a goth leaning night with this band from cool. TJ. And the goth kids, of course, don't go out until 10 o'clock. And when the show's over at 11:30, they're really only there for the last half of the show. So the first half was a little quiet. But that Pleasure Pill band that I had in killed it. Like, it was just a great night at the Casbah. And
I'm going to have to check them out.
They had there's this band called Can with a K. And they're like channeling Pavement. Bunch of like these kids are doing like 90s stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm very inspired by some of these young bands. So yeah, Pleasure Pill is definitely one of my favorites to check out.
Is Can out of South Bay as well, or
I don't know. I think they're all maybe in the here north in the city.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're playing
back in the day, the South Bay. I mean, POD was probably the biggest. Wouldn't you say, Jerry, the biggest one known from South Bay? But in my heyday, that was the place for some great stuff. Like Chicken Farm came out of there. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you got all the hardcore stuff like Unbroken.
Yep.
And they actually just played with Justin's, oh my God.
Def Club.
Wow. And I've seen some pictures that Becky took of that show. Just incredible. The fact that Unbroken did that show.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just such a legend band.
They are.
And the South Bay always put out some really freaking amazing music.
I'm a fan of bands that kind of have to work a little harder to get at what they're doing and what the art they're creating. So, when I think of bands that pretty much come from anywhere down in South Bay, San Diego, these are kids that, in my eyes, they don't all have like the means and all the stuff. Mommy and daddy's not buying them all the stuff. So I do feel like sometimes there's a different energy than anywhere else in the city. You know, and that's because of the being close to the border. I mean, there's all kinds of things that it is its own scene. There deserves to be some cooler venues like a Casbah in other parts of San Diego. Like, North County is like a whole different animal. Like, why isn't there some cool club, booking some of these shows that happen here in the city? I mean, 45 minutes. I mean, I just feel like we get asked out of so much now. People play the observatory in Orange County and then they go straight to Phoenix or Tucson. And we're just like, bye-bye, San Diego.
Yes.
Tourist town, whatever you are.
That's always been a problem.
I was going to ask you, speaking of the Casbah, what was the craziest show you've seen at the Casbah that really stands out?
I mean, those 2 Queens of the Stone Age shows, the White Stripes. The second time, I didn't see him the first time.
That was another temp show he put at Soma with White Stripes.
Yep.
That's
the
Strokes. Other one that I've seen there.
And
the Cult.
Strokes came to the new Soma too.
Did they? Nice.
Yeah.
Seen the Cult there under an assumed name. That was cool. Weezer did a show there as Goat Punishment. Years ago, I booked a Halloween show there with my buddies Electro Crypt and Cattle Decapitation. Probably one of the only times Cattle Decapitation's ever played the Casbah.
They also played Soma.
Yeah, well, of course.
Cool guys too.
We love Travis. I love Travis. He's amazing. Yeah, just last week, those 2 shows stand out, I mean, that band Pleasure Pill. I'm just so hungry I want San Diego to be better than it is. And so I love giving bands that deserve a chance to play that stage. To me, it's the most legendary stage in town. I mean, the Soma is a big deal. Len has sullied some things over the years, but man, you talk to kids about the memories they have with that venue that don't involve him whatsoever. It's a huge impact on shaping,
Oh yeah.
friendships, marriages, all kinds of different
Oh
things.
yeah, it's
Absolutely.
true.
I would imagine. Yeah.
But I was gonna say the show that stands out for me at the Casbah was the first show I ever went to at the Casbah. And
Yeah.
It was before I started working at Soma. I think it was before I started working at Soma. It was Alanis Morissette Jagged Pill tour.
Oh wow.
That show was crazy. It was sold out.
Yeah.
So packed in there, and to see Taylor Hawkins.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
On that
What year
small
was
stage.
that?
I can't. Was it?
Before 97 or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like 94, 95, something
Yeah,
like that.
okay.
Yeah.
Right when she first. That was the first.
Sure.
Her first.
I wasn't dialed in at that point. I think I was working in a law firm, so
That show
was
was
boring.
It was amazing.
I bet. I've met her though, thankfully.
Yeah.
Alanis.
I went to a couple other shows to see her play. So
Deadbolt
bigger
is
show.
one that
Always.
whenever I see Deadbolt,
Sure.
it's always. I mean, it's Deadbolt.
It's Deadbolt. It's hardly.
They're actually one of the very first bands that when I was doing a compilation tape before I even started thinking about booking shows was one of the first bands I went and talked with Harley and Les
Nice.
at their place. This is back in 87, 88.
Down in PB?
I don't remember because I was living in Santee at that time, and I was going to do a compilation tape called Other Side.
Okay.
And it was just, I had, do you remember the Cowpunks?
Uh-huh.
I talked to them about being on it. And that's how everything really started. The very beginning, the Wiener Schnitzel and that idea of the tape. And then everything grew to where I ended up at Soma. But Deadbolt shows at the Casbah. I mean,
I miss Les. He was just in town, I think. I didn't get to see him, unfortunately.
he's got that new band.
Yeah, that was it. But that whole story of him bailing, he just left Deadbolt basically high and dry. I think it was
really?
one of the Casbah shows down there at the Weston for Halloween.
Oh,
And I think that's when he just took off.
yeah, I never heard this story.
Disappeared for a long time.
So now we talked about Casbah. I was going to ask you what was a standout show at Morena at Soma.
Probably something like what did I say? Did I see Primal Scream there? I said the Cult there. Oh, that Smashing Pumpkins story.
That 2 nights.
The 2 nights where you had to go buy, this is in the early days of
special ticket.
trying to avoid scalping or whatever. And
Yeah.
so we went and stood in line at Off the Record up on El Cajon Boulevard out by SDSU and bought those tickets and went to that show.
And that was a 3-hour just the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah,
Nothing else.
I still have that like flyer ticket.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
I have
somewhere
that
in my
too.
collection. I wanted to look over the list, but for me, there's just that whole thing. I think it had to be somebody I really, really, really loved to put myself. Not that it was about drinking or anything ever, but at that point in your early 20s or something like that time period, you kind of enjoy the fact you're an adult now and you can have an adult beverage if you want to. So yeah, I was just kind of thinking about all the shows that maybe stood out. I don't know if I did go to any of probably none of the raves. I think I was kind of out of that at that point, but definitely the Cult, man. I love the Cult. They're just Ian Ashbury, and they were not at a high point at that moment. I don't think necessarily, but yeah. I know I've seen more shows. There's probably a whole list. I'm surprised you guys don't have a list.
I know we got
of Soma shows
hey,
somewhere.
we need to get this from the reader, but every time I've reached out, I get nowhere with them.
Sure.
Same here.
Because they would have the history. They would have all those old ads with the flyers in there.
Right.
And
I never did go to one of the New Year's Eve shows, but those shows always look like.
Those shows were always good.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of work for us, but they were good.
Did they have alcohol at those at the sports arena
yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could actually drink.
There
at
was
that
3
one.
stages. There was a bar stage.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So in the bar.
Deadbolt had played 1 year,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, those shows were insane. But it was also, the crazy thing about going back to giving San Diego, putting these local bands on the map. Some of these local bands, that's the biggest stage that they probably will have ever played. 6,000, 7,000.
7,000 people.
And
Even at the time when Descendants headlined one of the New Year's Eve shows, that was the biggest crowd they played in front of
Wow.
until Warp started. So yeah, Stefan would always talk about that.
And
I
it's
love
crazy
Warped
just,
Tours.
knowing the fact that it came, it's San Diego, yet we're not really still on the map, but playing the sports arena where I went to see Iron Maiden,
Sure.
And then I'm backstage running one of the stages and Len's running the other, and local bands are playing the fucking sports arena.
It's a big deal.
That's
And not only that, you're introducing them.
Yeah,
Big stages.
I did a fart joke before Fluff played. Looked at me like, you son of a bitch. Because, everyone knows, and to upstage, the only way to do it is to do a fart sound and a fart joke in front of 7,000 people.
Nice work.
So that's my claim to fame.
There you go. Rest in peace,
Yeah, it's definitely, that's one that we should have interviewed. Definitely.
Well, he's been
And
here too. He's been to this house.
Yeah, he came here and I showed him, because I can press skateboards as well. So I showed him the Rumble out front and the collection, and we were talking for a little bit. Ryan from Fishwife had brought him over.
Nice.
Funny thing about that is I looked at the camera, I got the camera and the screen in there, and I look at the camera, I'm like, I told my wife, I go, oh, Ryan's here. And this other girl was with him too. I know her, but I can't remember the name. And I'm looking at the camera. I'm like, what the fuck is Jay Damascus doing here? And I look again. I'm like, oh, that's Otis. What the hell is O doing here? And then it was just funny that it looked like Jay for a minute.
Yeah.
And O was, his guitar tech.
Yeah.
So
a bigger doppelganger, but yeah, they look the hat and the hair.
So that was really great. It was just fun because I've known, O forever. And for him to come here and see the skateboard collection, and it's funny when we talk about skateboarding with people, I didn't realize how many people rode a skateboard or still do. And by the time I was doing the club, that was basically my whole life, my personal life, other than, you could probably tell I kind of like spooky stuff. I kept that all completely aside. I was just so focused in on the music. And the more and more bands that we talked to, and like, oh yeah, I skated and blah, 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 or other fans. That's another great thing is, running into someone and say, oh yeah, I met my wife there at this show, and now our kids are in a band, and don't you do Red Rum skates? Yeah. Well, I still skate. What? What?
Sure. Tony Hawk still does. Come on.
Yeah. And what's funny is I got, this guy, Johnny, he's 70 years old. He just,
Jimmy G.
Yeah, Jimmy. There we go. He had just turned 70, so I sent him a big sticker pack. His daughter had reached out and said, hey, he's a fan of your company. Can you send him some stickers for his 70th birthday? And he's still dropping in pools and riding pools. And I'm like,
nuts.
And I talked to him a few times. He sent me some new clips. He started getting some notoriety and doing interviews and stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's rad. 70 years old. And I'm, turning 55. I can stay on my board.
Sure.
I'm not going to be riding pools. I was never that good.
Yeah.
Plus, I know my limitations.
I'll just go to the 7-Eleven down the street from my house and back.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of ride a little bit, but yeah, I know my limitations. And
Bones don't heal as quickly.
I will admit one thing that's a major difference is just even cruising without a hangover.
Right.
It's amazing. It's really made it a lot more fun. So a lot of things in life are a lot more fun without a hangover.
Nice.
The first podcast we were doing, they were each a half hour long. So we actually went to a studio and with Mikey was part of, and I would drink during the session about a 12-pack or close to. So the later interviews started getting more and more sloppy. So the idea of me not drinking while interviewing.
How long have you been sober?
Well, I wouldn't say fully sober. Like last night, my wife and I had shared a little champagne, but
okay.
I did a detox, which was really nasty for about a week. I was in bad shape, real bad shape. And then I didn't drink for about a month, and I drank a little bit, had some NA beer, some NA Guinness.
Sure.
And I just started to realize the beer even started upsetting my stomach. And so now I tried some Mike's Hard Lemonade last week or whenever it was, and that just fucks with me. So it's like I just can't really. The champagne's been fine,
right?
But I don't know. I'm walking that thin line. It's like sobriety and being, like that sober guy
Yeah.
has never fit well for me.
You're not California sober? You don't smoke cannabis?
Yeah, I do, but very, very minimal. That's been around in my life since I was about 12, but I can't smoke and go to work. It's to go to bed.
You can't smoke and do landscaping?
I probably could, but I would
think
end up.
You'd get all fucking zen with the bushes and create some art while you're at it.
Probably would, but I wouldn't make any money. I'd be smoking it all. But no, I'm an evening, because like I said, I get up at 4.
Yeah.
So around 7:38, I have a little bit of mota. And
mota.
It actually, now I find that it feels like I'm drunk. So I get I'm not really, and that's after a hit.
Right.
I'm not a good pot smoker. I'm not adding to the cannabis industry's $1 billion industry.
He's not a chronic.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And that's the thing, back in the day at the club, we would have like Yellow Man or HR or Makeda Dread would do shows.
Ika Mouse, Pat de Bonton.
Yeah. Yellow Man was a favorite. When I got to see him, HR, of course, was great, but HR even back then was a little wonky.
Yeah.
His issues and his personality started to get to him. And this is, early days. But Yellow Man, I was like, and he was so fucking cool.
Nice.
But the entire venue, from the bottom to the top, and even down, it would seep down in the dungeon. It was just, freaking opium den of weed smoke. So, and I would drink, coffees. That was Len's thing too. We always had coffee.
Sure.
So I'd be drinking that, rocket fuel, and I would be kind of, cockeyed a little bit, but still trying to run the show. I didn't have to do as much because Makeda, and then, what's the cat that she always had?
Damajali?
Yeah.
Damajali.
And so they kind of ran it, but, we had to watch the venue. And working for Len back then, because he was, probably trying to mold me, because I was only 21 when I started booking shows there. So he would be on me to make sure I wasn't too high or anything, and I was, on my game.
Yeah.
But even then, I didn't like it because I had to be on my game, and I didn't want to be all freaking stunned and like, yeah, man, no, it's cool. Come backstage. Fuck with the board while you're here. Yeah, no, alcohol is cool. If we get caught, we're shut down. I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
There's plenty of other people doing that.
Does San Diego do the Marley Festival anymore? The birthday?
Somewhat like that. Not like it used to be. I think she does it at the World Beat Center.
Because remember when it used to be at the sports arena?
Oh, yeah.
And the whole sports arena would be full
cops
of...
be rolling around in there.
And they're all high.
Stoned.
Yeah, like contact high.
Yeah.
All right. So what I was curious about is dynamics of a radio station.
Okay.
Because it always seemed like this weird sort of, I don't know, own culture in itself.
Sure.
I used to listen to DSC, and like we were talking about earlier, B100 and 13K. Yeah. And to me, it always just seemed like this completely unattainable thing for someone like me to even be involved in. And in the early days of the company, I was taking stuff to 94.9, the offices, for the skateboard company as promotional giveaway stuff.
Sure.
And just walking into that building, I'm like, am I allowed to be here? I mean, do they know who I am? I mean, I'm fucking this stupid scumbag skateboarder, punk rocker.
Sure.
And, I expected to see a lot of suits and just, kind of like going into a lawyer's office. But then, loudspeaker and the other things that they did there. What is the culture like in the radio business?
Well, it's not as cool as it used to be before the deregulation of it all, right? When all of a sudden big companies could own multiple radio stations, which is where we're at today. So you lose a lot of that independent individual culture, something that like 91X was when it used to be down on Pacific Highway.
It moved. I didn't know it moved.
Yeah, they haven't been there for years. They're in a big, Death Star building now up in Granite Ridge.
Damn, because I used to go over there. 91X was a pretty cool studio.
Very iconic on that spot. But you got to remember, I mean, maybe you do. 1983, 91X coming on air as a radio station was a big deal, a really magical moment in San Diego, and everybody, all the kids, young, it was a new generation, right? I mean, the Led Zeppelins and the Jimi Hendrixes are kind of moving away, and this new generation of kids loving all this alternative punk, new wave, whatever any of it you wanted to call back then. But 91X was such a great tool and asset to have. I mean, one of the first alternative radio stations anywhere in the world, probably the third, I think. K-Rock being the first. And, it was really fun as a fan up until I think it all changed with Nirvana. But because Nirvana is when they start to realize that alternative is a valid format as a format. Because prior to 91, you didn't really have alternative stations around the country. Nirvana comes and it explodes, and so all of a sudden alternative is like, that's the year punk broke, as they say.
And that and it blew out the independent labels too. Everything blew up with those labels. It wasn't just the majors.
Sure. Yeah. An exciting time,
Yeah.
But radio, I don't know, I mean, the people that are in charge have, they do a lot of research, they study the music, the listeners, the target audience. Back then, it was more by seat of your pants. If you liked a song, I think you played it, Problem being over the years, like any of those radio stations, there's just so much consulting that goes on that just takes away so much of the heart and soul of it. And the DJs aren't really allowed to let their personalities shine as much anymore. They want a little control over that. The morning shows are the big thing that they focus all the energy on, that draws the people, the masses for the day,
and it all depended on your time slot too.
Sure. I just managed a part-time career in it very well. And it, I always wanted to do more. The big thing is with radio and television, you need to move. You got to go somewhere else a lot of times to get the respect and recognition to come back. Right. And so I never did that. I just did my stuff here. Maybe at some point I could have tried to go to another market. I was not moving from San Diego. That just, especially at this point, maybe if I was younger and I had not met my wife or anything, but maybe that would have happened possibly. But, this is later in my life. I'm getting these opportunities, and, I'm not moving to LA. I'm not moving to Seattle. I'm not moving to Idaho.
Right.
So those types of things.
And that's the way the entertainment industry works in that time.
Yeah, exactly.
My buddy used to work for Fox Sports Network, and in order to move up, he had to move out of state.
Yep. I don't think my program director that I worked with both at 94.9 and 91X ever truly respected my work because of something like that. Maybe other things too, but ultimately it's kind of like, you're not a professional broadcaster until that happens.
You've cut your teeth
and you've gone somewhere, whatever.
So it's a preconceived hierarchy that you have to fit in to be.
A little bit.
I can relate to that because I don't think I was ever really taken seriously, partially because of the way that Len would downplay me. Didn't want me in the public eye, even though I was.
Right.
But
he wants
I kind of
control.
felt the same. Oh, yeah. And it, it's that control thing. He wasn't wearing a suit. But
the thing is we were more in the public eye than him. He was just a name, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, he introduced some of the shows. People knew he was, but who was there all the time was us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, through my radio days, my favorite thing was, obviously the current Soma, and being able to just walk in the back door. Even that's gone now. I mean, the Live Nation.
I know he had the key to the city.
Pretty much.
Even us, like when we were doing Soma, people knew who we were.
Yeah.
And,
I didn't have no damn key.
Oh, you just didn't use it. That's all.
But that place, I mean, the respect I got from all the people that worked there, and just having kind of the ability to just roll up to a show, that was fun. And I don't feel like I have that anymore because
out of sight, out of mind.
I don't know who's there. I mean, Len did make a point to keep some of his people, right? I don't know the complete deal in relationship with Live Nation, but basically,
some of the basically most of the same people, I think.
It's still the girls in the box office, and it's still like he kept enough of control over the establishment that keeps his employees there that wanted to.
Well, I think it's a 50-50 type.
Yeah.
Over there.
They have like first right of refusal kind of a thing.
And they'll book all their shows because when Live Nation came in, you noticed that the shows weren't the same type of
Yeah, exactly. Well, dude, I did get to go upstairs and see the nice, beautiful shower stalls and how upgraded the upstairs is now.
I walked out of that in
nice
04, so I didn't see any of that.
Yeah,
it was pretty trashed.
It's much more deserving of a bigger act now to come in.
And that's what it should have been off the bat, you know. But it's
still weird, man.
It's all about money.
Just hearing it's so weird. I mean.
From downtown
to now. I mean, granted, I personally, when the Scottish Rite Center was one thing. I'm like, oh God, what are we doing here? But we had to, do some shows. And then when we got to Metro, I was really like, I've talked about this before. I was not going to go back. I had no interest. I was kind of left on my own, but Len was trying to still keep me in. And I thought Metro was fairly corporate, in a sense, because it was better constructed, kind of made more sense. Where you got the Thunderdome in downtown, that was my element. I was comfortable. Even though, as we were talking about earlier, the scene whenever the skinheads would show up and all that, but Metro, it allowed us to do so much more. And I mean, we all know this as we get older, things have to progress. Otherwise, they become stale.
Sure.
So the progression now where they've gone, granted, yes, it is. To me, it's extremely corporate.
Yeah.
And I feel completely uncomfortable. But the progression does make sense, and it is still giving opportunities, and it is still doing shows. So in that sense, I cannot poo-poo it at all.
What's funny too is because like most of the legendary venues were shitholes.
Oh like
CBGB's. I mean, that place was a shithole.
I mean, Casbah is a shithole. No. But I mean, in comparison to some other places, I mean, it's. I like it because it's that way. I love it because it's gritty.
It has a feel. It has a vibe to it. When you go to some of these bigger venues that even like Golden Voice owns, they're really nice.
Yeah,
they put millions and millions of dollars in those venues. So.
I love the Fonda.
Yeah, I like the Fonda.
That's like a great spot. I just love they finally did something like that to the Observatory here and ripped out the seats and made that kind of like those places up in LA. Like we have a theater.
My LA hangout would be the Viper Room.
Sure, they're gonna tear that mother.
Yeah.
I've been there a few times. I remember seeing Michael DeBar's there. Do you know who Michael DeBar's is?
Sounds really
familiar. From the 70s. Actor, singer. He tried to be a rock star. He put out some albums. It was kind of cool. It was random. I just happened to be there. Of the few times I've been to the Viper Room. I could never figure out why local bands got to play there. Like Dirty Sweet used to play there all the time, and that was because of Joe Rinaldi, who's now back here in San Diego and runs the Music Box. Oh, but he was a big promoter as well.
Buck and Iron plays there in L.A., so we do several shows there.
Nice.
What's the venue that Tammy Down was doing up in L.A.?
Wasn't that the Kit Kat? Or
the Kit Kat Club?
Maybe.
Because Sin had played there.
Okay.
And this is funny because I was in the booth. We had played, and it went over pretty good. I was, for the most part, just be in the back smoking cigarettes. Back then, I was still smoking cigarettes, and just wherever I would get my drink, and I would just kind of hide, because it was L.A. and here's San Diego bass player up there, but so I'm sitting in the booth at the end of the night, and Stoney comes to collect me, and I've got two girls on the sides of me, and they're like, "Oh, you're the bass player," but they didn't know who I was. It was obviously it's the end of the night, they're trolling. So luckily, Stoney comes up and he's all, "Jermison." Stoney said, "What's up? We got to go. The bus is going. Got to get on the bus," or something like that. And he just made it seem like, we're this big band. And luckily, it got me out of there. And so we all got in Candy's VW car. And
the bus.
I guess.
Bus.
Yeah. I think all of us, I don't even remember where the equipment was. Maybe Eric drove up the equipment and the SUV or whatever, and him and his ex-wife's. But it was a really cool place because it's Tammy from Faster Pussycat. I'm up here, and the singer, not Men with That. What's the band? Beds Are Burning.
Midnight Oil.
Yeah. He had seen us earlier, and we had whatever restaurant, and we invited him to the show. So I think he was there. And I mean, since him, we were starting to do really well.
Sure.
I put that band together, got Stoney on board. He brought in Eric. Eventually, we ended up with Lucy on keys and then Candy doing vocals. And because I was going to do vocals, Stoney and I were going to do vocals in the beginning. I'm like, I don't want to do that, because I was also doing the band Urine. And I wanted this to be traditional New York style, 75, 70s. And that's the reason the 77 in the name. And the Simpson part came because I got real bad arthritis, and it was really bad when I was younger. So I used, it's like Tiger Balm on my thumbs so they wouldn't cramp up so I could play. And it was like Sunjin or something like that. So while we're at band practice and we're just going around with names, and I think it was Eric, the drummer, that said Simpson. And we batted it about Simpson 77. All right, cool. That's it.
Nice.
And we slowly formed, and that place was a fun place, and it was a fun band to play.
Yeah.
But again, it was another one of those. It was small. When the place is packed, it's basically like a humidifier or a sauna. Those are the best places.
Yeah.
But to get real opportunities, you have to play those smaller places, and then you move up in the market and you start playing the bigger arenas. And it seems like it'd be kind of the same thing in radio, where they want you to start off in a small place, cut your teeth, basically do it for free, and then you can work your way up.
Yeah.
But the thing that I never understood, getting back to that, Halloran being bumped around so much.
Sure.
I'm like, what the hell,
He is now, I think, the only part-timer. 91X is so bare bones. They have no part-timers. I think they operate in the middle of the night with no DJs whatsoever. But Halloran's like the one guy that gets the call.
Wow.
To do, like, today's Sunday, so I think he filled in for Resurrection Sunday. But other than that, like, he's just their utility guy that sits out there, and the only one that gets the call.
It's all computer now, right?
Well, I mean, in my entire days, I mean, it's all been on the computer and pre-programmed ahead of time, so you don't have any
no more tapes.
No tape CDs or they had the none of that stuff anymore. But it's again, going back to it, it's all thought out and way too down to the minutia that there's no like heart and soul that comes through. Now, the big thing that I think they did at 91X in the last maybe like a few months before I was let go, so let's say a year and a half ago, they kind of went to a retro format a little bit. So I think they're not barely playing any new music. If they do, it's like buried, but they're playing all the like stuff that you're familiar with from 40 years of alternative music, probably leaning more towards the first 20 years.
Yeah. I've actually found it easier to listen to now.
Right.
So it's more 80s and 90s.
I would say. Yeah. But the ratings don't reflect it. They have another station in their family that is the old B100, right? Because all the stations they own are the Mexican stations.
Right.
And I don't know, technically you're not supposed to be able to own them. Like, you operate them, you manage them, you make the money, but you don't own the signal. I don't know what the deal is with our company. I seem to think that they do own them, but then they bought this other station, and that station's their breadwinner right now. The Big FM they call it, and I'd say it's a hybrid of 91X and KGB.
Oh wow!
And it's the station that people put on in the office. The one that always gets the highest ratings is the one that an office group of people can agree on a station and listen to. Those are the ones that typically do well in the ratings. So 91X is not. 94.9, I think, still kind of beats them, which still exists. But 94.9 is so much more programmed by a national thing. 91. I'll give 91X credit that it is a local company, and those are local people here in the city. But radio as a whole, they're starting to consolidate where there might be only one live DJ on 94.9, and everything else is piped in from somewhere else. The morning shows from Vegas, afternoon might come from San Francisco. I know it's weird. So
yeah, that's crazy.
Then you talk about people getting a chance to break into some place. Well, when all the stations are owned by these companies, then they're not giving new people a chance to get on the air. they think in their minds, well, we're putting on somebody that's from this big market in your little town, so you're benefiting by getting a better talent. But they're not there. They don't maybe understand the local stuff, anything about it, you know? So it's weird. Like, even with 94.9, I would think maybe because they're in the same family as K-Rock, right? So K-Rock has a morning show. Why wouldn't they run that morning show, which at least reflects a little bit of a Southern California attitude? Otherwise, they're running a morning show out of Vegas.
Yeah.
But those radio companies they've spent so much money to buy all these radio stations, and who's listening to the radio?
Yeah.
You know, the advertising dollars aren't there as much. People just aren't, you know, you have your phone, you have all these streaming other ways to listen to what the station you program.
Yeah, and then, you know, podcast is a huge thing too. So people are turning to that as well. And then plus, you know, Spotify or iHeartRadio, and there's other ways to learn.
iHeart is the Clear channel. They just threw a new fun name on it. So like, but it's weird because if you listen to iHeart radio stations here in San Diego, they promote some of the podcasts and the weird things the other things that they do and offer. And I find that interesting because you're then directing people away from listening to the radio, but they realize they need to encompass all of these audio listening things, and so that they offer their own podcasts and hope that, you know, people advertise,
subscribe to that. I was going to ask you about payola.
Oh yeah.
So in my lifetime, I mean, you know, that went from bills being in a 45 or, you know, some kind of bribe from drugs to money. But in my lifetime, you know, that's not a part of it, but they have consultants. So there's a middleman.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's usually how something is done, whatever it might be.
Because I'm sure the labels were like trying to push, hey, you got to promote this band.
Right. And in turn, they might give them a trip to give away. Or I remember at 94.9, we were doing a big giveaway with iPads or something. So they might buy a bunch of iPads that we give away.
So they just do it in a different form.
But it's kind of through a back door.
Yeah.
And it still happens on some level. I don't know how that all works now because, you know, the radio game is so weird. You know, you have these people that are radio reps. They come to the city, they wine and dine the program directors and do all these things in hopes that, you know, they'll play the music. But now the impact is so minimal. You know, how are records broken anymore? It's like,
there's no
seems like it's
there's no
TikTok.
Business in the music business anymore.
Right. There's all this other stuff. So
definitely not like what we were used to in the 90s.
When is that going to fade away a little bit? When are the radio stations going to be given these opportunities? And I don't know. I mean, it's still obviously a tool. I mean,
it's even like how bands, how do they go platinum if they're not selling full albums?
Right.
Yeah.
It's all about singles now.
Yeah.
And just so many.
They just changed. Well, that might be the new progressions. They just change it on, you know, well, that doesn't really have any clout anymore if you're streamed.
Well,
so
the other
many
problem
times.
is a lot of bands aren't making money off of streaming, like Spotify and Apple.
Pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, they're not making anything.
Yeah.
Gas is expensive.
Yeah.
And touring's expensive as hell. I watch a guy that talks about all the different costs and buses and, I mean, just inflation, gas, and you add it all up. It's to be able to, you know, the one thing is, someone I was talking to a while ago, I was talking to my friend Kayleen and whatever context came up about being an artist, how to survive being an artist. And immediately my first comment was, get another job. You want to be a musician? You want to be an artist? I mean, I've been an artist. If it wasn't for art, I wouldn't have made it through high school. Get another job.
Sure.
You know, because if you want to be a musician, you have to get used to being, you know, sleeping on couches, sleeping in the van, so nothing gets ripped off. So if the van gets ripped off, you're probably going to lose a band member that's sleeping in the van with all the equipment.
Sure.
You know, it's so hard to make money doing any of these things anymore, because the markets have all changed.
Yeah.
So now, you know, along with podcasting too, you know, you're into podcasting.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're not making any money off of it, and different people have different ways of doing it. And then to get into the market, I've studied all that. I had so many people offering things and, you know, if you buy into this, we can get you in front of this audience and we can get you up in the algorithm. And people are making all these promises, but it's just a bunch of money being shuffled around to people that have figured out ways to work the system.
Right.
And we had someone wanting to advertise with us, and, that never happened. In a way, I kind of prefer it not being owned by anyone. And remind me too, we do have pins, so we do give our guests pins.
Nice.
But, realistically, to do something like this, if you don't have the passion in it, and it's just like a robot sense of doing, like the corporate way of doing it, it kind of, for people like us, it takes all the passion out of it, and it just becomes a job.
Do you have any sponsors for your podcast, or
The Casbah.
Oh, nice.
I don't think. Well, he's helping buy gear for us, more or less. I think the idea is to do something like that. Yeah, get some sponsors going. I mean, ultimately, we want to get. I mean, Justin's been the biggest guest we've had so far. Justin Pearson from The Locust. But the idea is, when Buzz is here playing with the Melvins, we get him to sit down with us in the back bar, and we spend 30 minutes talking about a movie that he's picked ahead of time. So
basically, you're interviewing musicians about movies.
Yes, except for we did one with Tim Mays. He picked The Wizard of Oz. That one's coming up. We did a special Barbie edition with the two female artists here in town because my co-host Graham just desperately wanted to talk about the cultural significance of the new Barbie film,
right?
Which there is. If you haven't seen it, you probably should.
That's what my daughter was saying too. She did go and see it.
Yeah, it's hilarious. My wife wouldn't even go see it. I'm like, this is hilarious. This is gonna be funny. This might quite possibly have a little airplane or Naked Gun type comedy stuff going on. I mean, it was funny.
My daughter said that they were dropping all sorts of hints of all this nostalgia. And when I looked at even the commercials, I'm telling her, I just see nothing but pink. And I can't. I was never a Barbie,
Neither was I.
But she kind of was, but not really.
I had action figures. I had a
G.I.
Colonel Steve Austin.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
$6 Million Man.
Yep.
But yeah, it was fun. Silly.
I had Shogun. My brother and I each had a Shogun Warrior. The 2.5 foot tall ones.
Sure.
But that was more, but the significance of it, and then all the hype, and again, because she's 23. There's a bit of a difference in age there, but.
Yeah.
Anything that gets people talking.
Yeah.
And, the minute you have an open conversation with someone, unless you're arguing, you're going to get something out of it. You're going to learn something. And that's all, just a natural progression. And that's what I love about the podcast world, to be able to do this, because we get to talk with people and get to hear their stories. And, we get to share things and learn more.
Sure.
And,
what's the name of your podcast?
Yeah.
Soundcheck Flicks. Soundcheck Flicks. Flix. And it's on Spotify, but I think we just signed up with a service, so now you can listen to it on
all the platforms.
Yeah. All right, good. Yeah.
And that's Graham, who works the door at Casbah and Soda Bar, and he also works at Bluefoot. Moved from Kansas City, lives here for many years. Used to work at Blockbuster for many years. Big movie fan, so that tends to be the conversations he has with musicians. So yeah, he's kind of the movie guy. I bring the music angle, but we've all end up watching the film beforehand, not necessarily together. The only one I haven't rewatched was The Wizard of Oz, because I've definitely seen that thousands of times probably, but rewatched The Abyss, Suburbia, a couple other films. The coolest one, though, that still has impact in my mind as just the artistic level of the film and kind of the mind fuck that it provided was Holy Mountain. And this is a film that Justin Pearson picked. And it's surreal. It's different. It's from the 70s. I forget the director's name. He also stars as the main actor in the film, but it's a very surreal film, a good one, and something I would have expected Justin Pearson to pick. So, I think we have probably 10 in the can, still
cool.
being released every Monday. So that's kind of a new thing. I'm also still producing 2 shows on a station in Laguna Beach. It's what is considered a low power FM. So it just services the community of Laguna Beach. But just like anything, right? You can stream the station anywhere.
Right.
It's kind of an alternative, hip leaning station. I get to do 2 shows. once the 91X days were done for me, I asked if I could start another one there. So I do kind of a local show. That's called Stomping Grounds. So that's Thursdays at 11. And then Thursdays at 10, I do a new music show. And I'm getting, hundreds of tracks each week from various people all over the country and world that are companies and services. Some people end up finding me randomly, but I'm definitely not at a loss to have music to play each and every week on the new music show and on the local show. Still very active in reaching out and being a guy in the scene in the community.
Yeah.
So you're probably a little more than the guys that are currently hosting the show.
Pretty busy listening to music.
Yes. I give songs 30 seconds, maybe not a whole song, but I'm pretty quick to deciphering what I like and don't like.
If it doesn't pull you in.
Yeah.
It's got to grab me. But, local music's different. I mean, I tend to recognize something as important and good and talented, even though, I'm not putting on some pop artist at home when I'm by myself listening to music, but I can recognize stuff as good. And I always wanted to do that for everybody in the music community, not just the hip casbah band.
Right.
I wanted to embrace the pop punk stuff, even though I was kind of tired of it at that time. I was like, oh man, another pop punk band.
Yeah.
And then the third wave ska, not for me, dude. I did not participate in any of that at that time, but two-tone was my scene. Still love British ska and will always go see those bands given the chance.
Yeah. It sounds a lot like what I was basically doing in the beginning. And it's the premise of what Loudspeaker was. And, because knowing that they have someone like you to talk to that has a format to be able to play the music, and the fact that even, you do give it a chance and you give it that open mind.
Yeah.
That's just, worlds away from the corporate world of you have to fit this criteria. How many, or, the idea of how many people are in the band. There's 5. Well, what does the 5th person do? Well, there's 2 guitars. Why? It doesn't fit, because people like, the corporate world like to put things in molds and keep,
box.
So just the idea of being able to still do that and give people an opportunity. That's what keeps the scene going.
This
and then
town
do you mentor?
deserves more.
Is there anyone that you mentor? Any kids or? Anything?
I had some interns help me. Probably my little buddy Jordan Crimston. He's pretty well-known drummer now in San Diego. He's touring with this band called Oso Oso.
Okay.
I had the musicians. These are kids that have gone on to maybe do some music stuff. But nothing major. I mean, for me, always wanted Tim Mays to recognize various local bands.
Right.
And I would say over the years, probably the band that's had the most impact in his heart that I would have brought to the table is the Schizophonics.
Okay.
And those guys, they're like his go-to band for a while now. And they are, the most exciting rock and roll band from anywhere, I think, in a long time. I mean, they really are a phenomenal
I'm gonna have to check
show and performers, and they're getting to do their biggest North American tour right now. I mean, they've been all over the world to play shows and probably places like the Casbah or festivals, but now they're playing their biggest North American shows with this Australian band called the Chats.
Okay.
You might have heard that song, Smoko. I'm on Smoko. Good song. Check them out.
I haven't heard it, but I've heard the name.
Once you heard Smoko, it'll never leave your brain.
Okay.
It'll be that earworm.
It's one of those earworms?
It's a fun song. And they have mullets. Mullets are big in Australia.
I've noticed, I watched this Opal Hunters show, and it's just one of those brain dead things. I just sit here and pet Boogie, and I have my coffee, and I'll watch it on Saturday mornings, and if I'm not going to work. But I've noticed that's kind of the thing. And then in Def Club, there's Justin's 2 guitarists have the weird mullet sort of things going on. And I seen a kid yesterday up in Oceanside when we were looking for a car who had the same thing. But even my daughter does it with the bangs, kind of shaved a little bit on the sides.
Like Spock rockers.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Spock rock haircut.
And
that's, because that's what we called all the Locust kids and all that scene. They were Spock rockers.
Yeah. And so that's like the new thing. And a while back, I grew my hair out fairly long, and then I started getting tired of that. And my wife and I, we joke about it. It's because I can still have hair at my age, so might as well.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I'm spending more time brushing my hair than I am my beard. So I had to even it out. And then I told her I wanted to go back to a mohawk. That's where I felt the most comfortable, is just having a mohawk. So I'm back to the mohawk, and I spend more time on my beard than I do my hair. So it's evened out. But these mullet things, even if it's not to my likings, you got to give the kids the credit.
Sure.
I mean, they're really trying hard. But it takes the mentors of this town that are still giving back.
Yeah.
So we all, I wouldn't say it's our duty. It's just what we do because of the love of the scene. And, I didn't realize how much more you're doing. And I want to, as we wrap this up, I want to make sure we get any shout outs that you got or anything else that you want to promote. But I am so glad to, and not sounding cheesy, but it is going to be cheesy. Dude, I'm stoked that you came in.
Thanks.
Had no idea how much you did, and I love hearing people's stories. And now I know who to contact if I want to find something new.
Sure.
So
that's my goal.
And thank you for, coming here and talking with us and sharing this. So that being said, what are the hot things that you think we should be looking out for? And what other projects are you working on that you want to?
All right. The podcast. That's good. Stickers, Pyles Sticker Co. Hit me up for stickers. But that's also through my buddy Junior, the disco punk, Mr. Sticker. So he's kind of helping me out. But, you don't need to go to him. You come to the Pyles Sticker Company. But we're hand in hand, kind of the same thing.
Good deal.
Getting to bring new bands in at the Casbah, that's always an amazing thing. Working for Tim Mays and giving those bands that first chance to play that stage.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get those new, the transition bands, these kids that are in their early 20s. It's tough, right? Because they're still kind of maybe playing the all ages shows, and their fans haven't maybe transitioned to the bar. But there's some really great young bands that seem to be steeped in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so, it's relatable sound to me that I like, and of course want to get them into the club. So that's something really fun for me, because I think that's one of the most iconic places, like Soma, obviously, and the impact for a band playing those stages. It's things they'll never forget. Maybe if it was one time or if they had a career of it.
Right.
But having that ability to put people on the Casbah stage is huge for me, and I love that. The one thing I'm doing is kind of interesting on I work all these part-time gigs, I guess, but I do like cannabis, and I'm working for a cannabis company, a cannabis brand. I've been going to dispensaries and hanging out, trying to get people to try our product. So it's called Helman Valley Growers Club. The people behind it are former Marine Raiders. Helman Valley is in Afghanistan, so it's related to people that serve there. But they changed it to the Growers Club as opposed to the Gun Club, Helman Valley. So their whole thing is, it's a nonprofit, and all the profits are going to get it decriminalized on a federal level. So they're funding research at UC Irvine that would then get taken to the Senate and Congress, and hopefully at some point they could declassify it across the board, and it wouldn't be a Schedule I drug, so that VAs in every state could prescribe THC over opioids. So it's kind of interesting. They've got cartridges, pre-rolls, and these chillums, these little pre-packed glass, 5 to 15 hitters that are reusable as well. It's got a little stopper on it. So that's something kind of new. I enjoy cannabis, so that's definitely a world I wanted to maybe step into a little bit. So that's kind of interesting. You might find me at a dispensary here in town hanging out to tell you about the product.
They do CBD as well, or? They
do not. They just have strictly those lines. They don't have flower, but the pre-rolls, the cartridges, and the chillums. And they partner with Gelato, I believe. That it seems like the cannabis industry is a little bit incestuous, but it's cool. This has a mission. We're helping people, and there's actually a state-funded measure called SB 34. So you're a veteran,
yes,
right? Do you smoke cannabis at all? Or no?
Not really.
Well, they have these events all over the state. They're called SB 34 events, and veterans can sign up for them. And when they go attend, like we did a beach cleanup recently, we did a park cleanup, they might do a hike, but you get free cannabis as a veteran.
That would be Senate Bill 30.
Yes, correct. And so I've worked a couple of those and met some interesting guys. I did not serve in the military. My father was in the Navy.
Go Navy.
But it's interesting to have a mission behind their product. I've discovered, I think there's another one that actually helps. A lot of black men have been incarcerated for cannabis over the years and are still serving, and probably states that it's now decriminalized. So they should all be let free. But there's a cannabis company that is working towards that as well.
Didn't Trump do that though? Didn't he release a bunch of
Might have
people that were busted
possibly
There was
that,
something.
I think
It still needs to be that whole thing. I mean, people are in for having a joint in the 70s and they're
crazy.
doing life.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Where people
And it wasn't
kill
even good
people
weed.
and they only get 10 years, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then a
Insane.
free apartment and needles.
But
I
let's see.
digress.
What else am I working on? I booked a few shows at the Good Bar in Point Loma, which is an interesting, just kind of a neighborhood bar. It's in a little corner strip mall very close to the Marine Corps base, I guess, and right near the Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
But I've been helping book some bands there for them, bringing in stuff that's maybe a little bit more geared towards more of a mainstream audience than a Casbah or Soma or Till 2 or Tower or whatever.
Well, where do people reach you if they want to?
I'm the local Pyle. I just go by the local Pyle on Instagram, Twitter, and now Threads. So it's just my last name without an S.
Okay.
The local Pyle, Pyle.
Perfect.
And yeah, hit me up if you need a show, if you want a show at the Casbah. I'm always looking for bands and new bands, and I'm very open and friendly, and I want to hear about your band. I thrive on talking to musicians and young musicians and anybody that's trying to be creative and push the envelope in this city that is way too conservative and melancholy as a whole. I really want, I just want edge. You know, I mean, it's just so easy to be laid back and wear your flip flops and live that beachy lifestyle. But we deserve edgier art, edgier music, edgier culture. All of it is just, it happens all over the country. I don't know why we're just this place that we are, but it is exciting to see some things happen. Some of it, I don't know. I feel like stuff like the Lafayette, you know, the millions of dollars that have just gone into this place that have transformed it into something it probably deserves to be. But I really got to enjoy it quite a few years when it was, you know, it was a little grittier. I don't know. I have some fond memories of doing nights of Livewire and the Red Fox Room, and that would be your night, just bouncing between the two.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a lot of money coming to San Diego, a lot of new people. I just hope some of them are creative and invest in some different kinds of things in San Diego rather than all the bougie Instagram stuff. Everything seems to be Instagrammable now. Everything.
I think that's just another wave. And realistically, there is, and there always has been a ton of talent. But this is just another way that we're going to have everything in the description. All the links and all that information. It's just a matter of getting it out there.
We're so spread
one
out.
step at a time.
I mean,
we're getting it out there.
South Bay is one thing.
Did
North
you ever
County.
go to any shows at the California Theater back in the day?
I went to there maybe once or twice. I remember seeing the Violent Femmes there specifically, but yeah, not a lot. I didn't produce any shows there. I was just
that was almost
the Soma.
Yeah.
The second Soma.
Len and I actually, and Nevison and Joe went, but Len and I went once, and we're checking it out. And one of the dressing rooms downstairs had very interesting stains on the wall over, I think it was just over 2 walls that looked like a good blood splatter.
Yeah.
And at that point, at the ageness, it looked about right.
Sure.
I was creeped out in there, but it was kind of a good creeped out, but I was also kind of like,
I can only imagine
kind of gnarly.
that has sat there so long, and just there are people living in there, and you could only imagine. It's like zombies, and but yeah, many great memories of 4th and B. That was another good run, good spot.
That place closed down. I didn't know that.
They've demolished it now. They finally tore it down. I think they're going to tear down the California Theater because it's just it's time.
Dilapidated.
That's just sad. Yeah, it's terrible.
So when did 4th and B get torn down?
Recently. Like I'd say in the last 6 months.
What was the last show over there?
It's been a long time. I mean, They were supposed to reopen it as like a bougie nightclub, and then that never happened.
Because really, that was like the adult Soma.
Yeah.
It was kind of set up the same way.
Bob, I think, is the original owner, and then that other guy came in, and when that other guy came in at the end, he was kind of weird, and it just ended up kind of fading
I can't even
away.
remember the last show I went to there.
Saw some good ones there.
Oh, yeah.
I think
definitely.
one of my favorites there is seeing the Strokes and the lead singer, Julian Casablancas, was so wasted, like beyond wasted, could not perform. So the opener, who was this guy Harmar Superstar, he looks like Ron Jeremy a little bit, but he sings like Stevie Wonder. So he came out and sang the Strokes songs, which at this point I'm in my radio career now, so I didn't pay for those tickets. And that was one of the most memorable shows I've ever seen, like to get to see the Strokes, but then with him singing, it was just random, right? I know a lot of people were upset because they wanted to see Julian Casablancas up there, but I'll never forget that as just being like, well, you're never going to get to see this. This is weird. I'm going to enjoy
the famous Bad Brain show at Soma. No HR.
Oh, yeah.
Chino singing for
That was a crazy night.
I'm looking forward to the Day of the Deftones. I think that's cool that those guys put that festival on here in San Diego, of all places.
Oh, I didn't even know anything about that.
This is the fourth or fifth year they're doing it. It's a big festival down in Petco, and the lineup is incredible. They had Rocket on it because he has like a love of San Diego.
Yeah, because they used to play
and
Soma and the Casbah back in the day.
The beer,
back in the 90s.
Their beer is with Belching Beaver, which is a local brewery. So I think that's
what
good beer. Started it. So they've just announced they're doing it again this year, 5th year in a row. And I think people now know about it, so they're coming. Right. I would say the first few years it might have been a lot of locals, but it's like a destination thing because they don't do it anywhere else.
Huh.
And Pinback's on it this year, which is kind of cool as far as a local band.
Speaking of, I thought I heard a song of them the other day. Yesterday, my wife and I were somewhere, and something came on the radio. It might have been at Mossy, and I'm like, is this Pinback? And she looks at me like, who? I go, Pinback. You don't remember? She's like, trying to remember. And I'm going, like, I just got chills right now thinking about it, going, they were, oh my God, that was a fucking good band. The talent in this town is ridiculous.
It really is.
I mean, just
thankfully, guys ridiculous. Like Justin Pearson and John Reese didn't move to New York or Los Angeles.
Yeah. Speaking of, I have to text Justin. I'm starting an overhaul of his landscape.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, we connected and been talking a lot lately. But yeah, he's that, and he just had John Reese.
Yep.
And
I'm really bummed about Rick. Having Rick back in San Diego was like a pretty cool thing, and I honestly didn't know him that well at all.
Either did I.
But having him back in San Diego, because I mean he's a rock god, just like Swami, they really are, and so that elevated some energy to me in San Diego having him back here. That Drive Like Jehu show that they did at the Spreckles in Balboa Park was hands down one of the biggest things I've experienced. That was a local music phenomenon.
Yeah. Everything I hear about that, it just makes me really regret not being there. But I've never been a huge fan, and there was obviously the controversy between John and us. But after me talking again, Justin made me realize, I should just reach out to John, see if John wants to come in, and we could just talk, because where we come from at the club and the point of view where I was coming from, the shit that Len was causing and creating was not my bag. Yeah. I got all the shit for it, and he would point at me and I got death threats because of what was going on with that. But at this point, I mean, John's another person, just a staple of this town, who's championed this town.
Yeah.
So it's really made, and after talking with Justin, it's made me realize, Jerry and I should try to sit and talk with John and just get his point of view. But I also want to hear of his history.
Sure.
And all the projects that he's done. Because
what he's doing now? He's in Me First and the Gimme Gimmes.
Oh, shit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Him and Pinch, Pinch lives here, but Pinch was the Damn drummer. British guy many years, and he moved here.
Yeah, he used to hang out at the new Soma.
Yeah.
So, yep.
All right. Well, Tim, again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And like I said, we'll have all the info in the in the description. And thanks for sitting in and talking with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man.
I really appreciate it.
I love it. You guys got to check out Soundcheck Flicks.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And maybe we'll have you on. What would be your favorite movie? What would you pick? Jerry?
It's a hard one. I have to think. I have a few favorite movies.
Yeah? What about you?
Either The Addams Family,
Okay.
one or two.
Well, good. We haven't done those yet.
What was it? Midnight Run,
Okay.
I believe. The
Is that-
80s flick about the Turkish prison, the guy trying to...
Midnight Express.
Midnight
Oh,
Express,
yeah, I remember that one. Okay. I don't know
That,
if I
as
saw
a
that,
kid, my memories from that is immediately listening to like Venom, black metal,
but- Uh-huh.
because that movie it like disturbed me so much. I had to listen to Venom to even out. It just, yeah. And I remember there was some kids, Kevin and Tim, I think. And, you know, they were a little bit better off. So they had a VCR.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, they had like a nice big TV. So I seen it there because I grew up fairly poor. I mean, we got by, but just seeing it that way. And it was a movie my mom wouldn't have let me see.
Actually,
And,
I have to say Halloween, the original, and Die Hard.
Okay.
Those are my two. I can watch those movies over and over. Yeah.
All right. Well, we
That's
haven't
like-
done those yet.
Die Hard's like the Christmas movie. I
Yeah.
play that every Christmas.
Yeah.
course.
And of course, Halloween on Halloween.
I think I'm going to go to Nakatomi Plaza, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
And
real
that-
building in LA.
And,
Go see
yeah,
it.
and they actually filmed it there.
Yeah. It just showed up in my feed today on Facebook for some damn reason.
Oh, that's
I don't know why. It is a Christmas movie, though.
Netflix has the making of. They have that series of making of different movies,
Uh-huh.
and they have the making of Die Hard, and they actually filmed that in that building.
Oh, wow.
So they did. There was no set. They actually filmed in the building. So everything you saw in that building, like the areas that were under construction,
Uh-huh.
that was actually how it was, and
Wow.
the stuff that was laying around, that was actually there.
Huh.
So
I love practical effects.
yeah, it's crazy.
I just
Like Barbie.
Yeah.
There was no CG. Well, maybe a little CG. I don't know. But
There's a lot of fucking pink.
a lot of pink.
Shout out to my daughter for that.
Did you know that there was they actually like nationwide ran out of pink paint because of that? Like pandemic related, and the film sucked up all the pink paint. But I think you're okay now if you need some pink paint
That's
for
crazy.
some landscaping projects or anything.
There's some pink rocks. Don't
you
tell
go.
Justin, but that'll be a surprise.
Love it. Well, yeah, thanks for having
All
me.
right. Thank you.
Cheers.
This podcast was recorded at Red Rum Skates. Mixed by me, Jer. Music provided by Breakacre. We appreciate all our listeners and our guests. Please stay tuned till the next one. Have a great one.